Lochan. Thank you so much for taking out the time and talking to us.
Thanks, Tilika. Thank you for having me here. It's really a pleasure.
Great. Good to have you. So, Late Lochan, you are a learning and development specialist. You are a certified coach who's found passion in helping people navigate opportunities and just rediscover sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
Your own life experiences, as I understand. Tell us about
um,
what led to a management graduate and an MBA lose her path or find a need to rediscover herself.
okay. So, first of all, thank you once again for having me here. If I have to start a little, I think I have to go really way back, maybe it's like some 20 years back. I was always very keen to do something in the space of people. I wanted to kind of do something for people. Thankfully, early on in life, I understood that maths and science were not for me. So, so therefore, I kind of coerced my parents to, not force me down that path. And they were reasonably encouraging and supporting of that as well. But when I thought about what I should do in the space of people, I was keen to do psychology, but back then it was not considered a great career option. And what will you do, with being a psychologist and so on. And so I ended up choosing paths which were more safe or which could lead to better career prospects in some sense, which landed me in doing a bachelor in management, which from one of the esteemed colleges in Delhi University. And even in my final year, I was quite clear that I didn't want to do an MBA, but I was the only one who was not preparing for it. So it just felt very weird. I don't think I had the complete courage to stand out and say, hey, I'm going to do something different. Also because I didn't know what options and choices were available. And there was really nobody to guide me through that process and say it's okay to do that. So I ended up applying for my MBA. I also did get some job offers right after college. But I was convinced that post my MBA, I will get better pay package and more money and, than what I'm doing. And the career is all set, life is all set once you do that. And that landed me into doing an MBA, and I ended up specializing in marketing and came out, started working in sales. I genuinely did not like sales. I hated the fact that I had to wake up every morning and report some numbers. And in that, I understood that this is something that I didn't want to do. So I figured out a way out. I moved into collections, which was an alternative role that I had available. And from there, I slowly crawled myself or, found my way into training, because that was something I naturally gravitated towards in every role and in every scenario. I loved that part when I was in sales. I loved building my team. I loved training people. I loved managing relationships. So I kind of slowly moved into that role. And then, as I say, rest is history. So I kind of built myself in that space, and I found my calling. I find that word very big, but I found something that I enjoyed doing, and I found something that I was good at. So yeah, that's how I landed. In learning and development, I landed in becoming a certified coach, and literally I've come a full circle. So what I wanted to do 20 years back is what I'm getting to do today. And the fact that at different points of my career juncture, I didn't have the kind of guidance, support, or even the courage to do something which was different, led me to start OfExperiences, which is my current venture, to kind of help more and more people navigate through these questions and not necessarily always take a safe path or the only known path which is in front of them. So yeah.
So you rightly said, sometimes we give into the social pressure and the peer pressure, and we decide that the most popular choice is possibly, even when we've chosen up a certain path with all our heart and soul. There are certain changes in our everyday life, in our social requirements and scenarios, which lead us to choose a different or need for us to do something different. As somebody who is a professional, who's dealt with a lot of people, who does it day in and day out, what are some of those key all life changing scenarios and situations that you see that lead people to come up with these scenarios and handle and manage these struggles?
Um, so I'll just, add a little about this from my example and experiences. Though I was in a space which is learning and development, I enjoyed the work I was doing. Uh, but about 3 years back, I said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And what next? Not because I didn't enjoy the space, but I was asking, am I living up to my potential? Is this, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? Is there something else that I haven't explored? And there were these questions bubbling in my mind, and coupled with the fact that I probably was not in the best workspace. So I decided to take a break. And I said, before I, kind of get burnt out in the process of just answering these questions, let me just take a break and rethink through this. And a bigger realization, like I said, during that time was I started working as a coach with a lot of individual professionals. And I realized I'm not the only one asking this question, because life will change, and with every few years, your expectations from life, your perspectives about things, and your priorities start to change, and they should change. You're not living the same life anymore that you were living 10 years back. Your life stage is different. Your relationships are different. Your environment is different. So why do we then expect that our career path or what we really liked at one point of time will remain the same throughout our life? The problem comes in where we believe that, oh, because I picked a career path which I really liked 15 years back, I cannot change it. And what will people think about me? They'll think I don't have clarity of thought. They'll think that I'm all over the place, and they'll think I'm such a confused person. I'm not focused. So all of these become the dilemma and stigma that one goes through. Whereas some people may want to take it slower, some may want to go faster, some may want to completely pivot and do something different. And it's absolutely okay. And that's really what I started to realize, and said, we have to normalize this, and we have to say it's okay to take your own path. It's okay to completely take a U-turn, if at all, if you will, after having spent few years in doing something, I don't want to do this anymore, is absolutely fine. And that's really the struggle and challenge that most professionals feel today, especially the millennials, because we started maybe 15, 20 years back with a different thought process, and today life is very different for us, and we are stuck in between. We don't know who to emulate. Should we emulate the Gen Zs, or should we emulate our predecessors? And we are kind of stuck in that warp. So it's important to say it's okay. It's important to say it's okay to be confused. What I say is not okay is to stay with that confusion and stick to a path which is suboptimal. Because if it is suboptimal, it is going to have an impact on everything around you. It is going to have an impact on your life. It's going to have an impact on your relationships, on your health, and your general peace of mind and happiness that you're looking at. So be confused, but work towards solving that confusion.
And accept that you are confused and work towards it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, I highlight a very important point. It actually gets me thinking that, as millennial, as the next generation for the Gen X, it's very funny that we have a lot more options right now vis-a-vis our parents who probably had 3 or 4 career choices: be an engineer, be a lawyer, maybe be a
Be a
doctor,
banker.
or a banker, or a teacher,
Yeah,
or a whole lot of women.
correct.
And compared to that, I think we are very lucky that we have a whole lot of other professions that we can venture. But at the same time, this confusion and this, if I may use the word, the use of the word that midlife crisis has gone up substantially, and it kind of gets
Mm.
used very loosely by a lot of people, and leading to the stigma, like you mentioned, that people will think that I don't have clarity of thought, or I'm confused. So isn't it like, what more options is, are we optimizing it?
So I actually have a little bit of dissonance with the word midlife crisis. I think I was going through confusion all my life. So if for me, I would call it all life crisis or confusion. Um, and the fact that what the rate of change was very different 25 years back. The rate of change is very different today. So things are changing every 4 to 5 years. Um, I was recently interviewing for a profile called community manager. It didn't exist 5 years ago.
Yeah.
A social media manager, content writers didn't exist as full-time roles or professions. So obviously things are changing. There are a lot more options available. There are a lot more choices available. The part where I would want to call out is, don't let it lead to a point of crisis. And I'm using that word crisis very carefully to say where you reached a point of complete burnout, you reached a point of complete breakdown. Don't let yourself reach that point. There is restlessness. There is question of, am I optimizing? Am I being relevant? Work towards it. And sometimes the relevance is not necessarily coming only because of work, but it could be unfulfilled areas in other aspects of life, right? So how do I make myself lead a fulfilled life in all aspects, whether it's my personal life, whether it's my relationships, whether it's my hobbies, whether it's my own interests. So how do I take time out to kind of do all of that? So yes, midlife crisis is, like you said, used very loosely, and I personally don't like that word because crisis means something's really broken and can't be fixed. But the fact that everyone is asking these questions at different points of their career means that something has changed significantly in their life, and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be taken care of. It um, and it needs to be taken care of with the help of someone, or take help to solve for it. So it's like I'm coming back to it. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to go ahead and buy yourself the fanciest bike because you feel that that's probably going to give you a new joy in life. And it's absolutely okay to do all of those, provided you are filling the right void and not compensating in a different way. So a lack of appreciation, recognition, or insecurity at work shouldn't get translated into buying expensive things and for yourself, and doing crazy things in your personal space. It means addressing that. So the more we accept that people ask these questions, and they're asking that sooner than the earlier generations, the easier it becomes for us to address them at the right place, address them where these questions are arising or appearing. Yeah.
That's fair. I think, use the therapy, but use the right therapy to answer the right questions.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
But actually, that gets me to a very interesting question, that as a professional, and again, as somebody who's working with so many people to address similar issues at different stages of life, what are some of those trigger points that one should actually look out for? And like you rightly said, address them before they become, again, not trying to use the word crisis, but before they become maybe crisis mode.
Or too big to handle, right? Like, and we do hear of a lot of cases where people have had nervous breakdowns. We hear of anxiety attacks and so on. And it's not necessarily only arising from stress or work. It's arising from a conflict of what I want and what I'm doing. And that constant pull is, can lead to that. So, coming back to the question of saying, how do you recognize this? I think it starts with the first space of seeing if you find yourself restless a lot and are constantly figuring out what else can I do beyond what I'm doing at this point of time. And it's not a 1 day affair, it's not a 2 day affair, it's going on, it's occupying pretty much like 70% of your awake thinking time, then it's time for you to really address that, because it means there is something that's bothering you deep down. And it could be anything. It could be a trigger in at work, it could be a trigger in what you expect out of things, it could be a trigger from what you're expecting of yourself. All of those could be triggers. But the constant restlessness of saying, what else, what am I doing, what am I doing? The second, and I'll go into a little more therapeutic mode, but is if you also find yourself trying to numb down a lot of thoughts and feelings by um, by overcompensating on other things, which could be overindulgence in certain things. It could be overindulgence of devices, overindulgence of any form of consumption, or whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, and overindulgence in anything, even overindulgence in fitness and workouts, and like spending hours and hours doing something else. It is also a sign that something needs to be addressed. So I think these are two areas which I've noticed, at least in my observation of people, where they may come in talking about something else, but when we probe in a little further, we realize these are two things that's constantly bothering them, or these are two trigger points, or two identifiers or markers that we could kind of look at for everybody in that sense.
And if I have to ask that, what piece of advice you will give to people who are, family members and friends to identify these trigger points, and how can they address this? How can they reach out to the person and help them get support? Because let's be honest, sometimes we are just so consumed in our everyday life and situations that we don't want to address it. And like you said, you're scared what the society is going to say. You have social responsibilities, and hence you just keep pushing it away that it's fine, I'll figure it out one day.
I think the only piece of advice I would give to friends and family around is listen. Listen to the person. Don't assume. Don't advise. Don't suggest. Just listen. Just maybe ask the person of saying, what is it that you're thinking, and let the person share what he or she is feeling. Let the person share what he or she is thinking, and like I said, look for these trigger areas and say, okay, I've seen an increase in your restlessness. I see an increase in your anxiety, or I see an increase in the question that you're constantly asking and saying, okay, what do I do about this? What do I do next? Or I see an increase in consumption of XYZ things. It may be time for the family and friends to just step in and say, hey, what's bothering you and what's happening, rather than jump in and say, I don't think you should do this, I think you should do that. Get out of that advice mode, because that's what people a lot of times don't want to hear. They just want to listen. They just want someone who can listen to them. So just try and have open communication where you're doing less of talking and more of listening, and see if you can help them get help. And by help, I don't necessarily mean they have to speak to somebody who's only a therapist or something, but they could even speak to coaches. They could even speak to other people in the industry who can help them out. Try and see what kind of help do they require, and let them say what kind of help do they require, and help them with that.
Or guide them on the journey as to identify that they need help. It's one
Absolutely.
night. That's the advice, Loshan. So, Loshan, with this, I have to ask you about your own entrepreneurial journey. Like you just said that you recently started it off, and it's something that You discovered and this, you found your passion and you wanted to do it for others. And advice for women, other your fellow women who wish to get their journey started.
Uh, I think the first advice to women would be, and I yeah, is to define your own success. I mean, define what success means to you for yourself. Um, a lot of times we are, and I myself was in that space of saying, "Oh my God, if I quit working, will I be less successful? If I come back and join maybe at a lower pay, what does that say about me?" And so I also went through a lot of those questions till I reached a point of being okay with my own definition of success of what I was doing. So create that definition for yourself, life becomes a lot easier. The second advice would be to communicate, and communicate to say, we assume people know what we want, but a lot of times even people close to us probably don't know what we want. So it's open, just say it out loud that this is what you would want, out loud, and that then translates into asking for help, asking for support, and so many other things. But start with communicating. So define your own measure of success and openly communicate that also to people, saying, hey, this is what success means to me. It could be that I want to become, build my own business. It could be that I want to work in a job which keeps me comfortable. It could be that I don't want to do something. It could be that I want to take care of my family and focus on that. It could be many different things, but define that for yourself and be okay with that.
Yeah.
So I think that becomes the first and foremost, and then everything follows from there.
No, I totally agree. I think we women definitely need to work on accepting our needs, acknowledging it, and then being open about it. Claim it.
Yeah.
What we like, this is what we wish to do, and this is how we're going to do it
Yeah.
unapologetically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely that.
So, Lochan, towards the end, I have to ask, you named your company OfExperiences. That's quite a unique name. How did you come up with that?
Um, so when we started OfExperiences, it was supposed to be a peer sharing platform, and where the idea was to bring real stories and help real people in that sense. And when we kind of expanded that, we realized that at the end of the day, that's what we are all. We are all a bundle of our own experiences, and it's our experiences which make us who we are. It's our experiences who help us do what we want to do. So we stuck to the name, and we said, let's create those kind of experiences for people as well. So it encompasses all elements. The idea still remains that, how do we help everyday people? How do we help real people create their own stories, creating their own success measures, creating their own successful lives, and all of that happens through their own experiences that they gathered. So that's how we came up with the name, and we kind of stuck to that.
That's amazing. It's beautiful. And I have to so sure to say that, experiences are the most important thing in life. I think, like you rightly said, we are a bundle of experiences. We are a bundle of our own stories. Thank you so much, Lochan. Thank you so much for your time and sharing all those lovely tips and guidance to us. And I hope we get to read more from you.
Thank you so much for having me here, and of course, looking forward to sharing a little more as well on Soror. And fantastic work that's happening. I love the content. So congratulations for putting this together and giving voice to a lot of women from different walks and different spaces. So congrats for being on this path, and we'll look forward to doing more work together.
Absolutely. So looking forward to that, Lochan. Thank you so much.
Thanks a ton.